And the Big Ten is exploring private equity. So let's go ahead and get into it. The Big Ten, of course, college football's biggest financial powerhouse, they are potentially dipping their toes into private equity. Yes, that is the same conference that recently locked in a $7 billion TV deal. They are now exploring new ways to bring in even more money. And they've hired investment bank Evercore to shop the conference around to private investors. Now, this is a big shift, right? Just a few months ago, Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, he was openly skeptical about, private equity in college sports and whatnot. But now, I mean, the league is taking bids. They're evaluating potential investments. They're considering outside money to help enhance, conference business endeavors or whatever that means. So let's talk about what's changed. Let's break this down. First off, why private equity and why now? The Big Ten, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They're not hurting for cash, right? The conference brought in $880 million in revenue in 2023. And, this past year, they bring in USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. Those numbers are only going to go up, right? So here's the issue. College sports is changing very quickly. The House versus NCAA antitrust lawsuit that's going to end up forcing schools to, share revenue with athletes. It's up to $20.5 million per year per school. That money's got to come from somewhere. And even the biggest conferences are looking for ways to, what's the right way to say this? Increase their financial flexibility, right? Because even at 20.5 for the entire athletic department, we're still trying to figure out, okay, can we bring in more from outside to pay more than what that big number is? How are we supposed to keep up with these other schools? Like Texas is going to pay an astronomical amount of money for a football roster. Some of that money's got to go to other sports as well. How do you keep up, right? Florida State was the first school that seriously explored private equity, and they held talks with 6th Street and Arctos Partners back in 2022. So I'm trying to check my notes here. The Big 12 followed suit. They considered a deal worth up to $1 billion, and that was for a 15 to 20% ownership stake in the conference. And now, of course, the Big 10 doing their thing. It may make no mistake, like this could be a huge game changer. The Big Ten and the SEC have already started positioning themselves as the two dominant forces in college athletics. They held a private summit last October in Nashville to discuss some strategies, long-term strategies. Next month, we already talked about this, but they are set to meet again in New Orleans, like we talked about on the Monday, January 27th show. There is also the growing concept of, and we've talked about this a lot, the College Football Super League. Right? Some former Disney executives have been pushing Project Rudy, which is a proposal for a 70-team breakaway league. And that would be infused with up to $9 billion in private capital. Petitti dismissed the idea. He said the Big Ten and the SEC can handle things on their own. But, I mean, let's be real here. I mean, money talks. And the possibility of a true, NFL-style Super League is inching closer. Now, at the same time, another group called College Sports Tomorrow, and they feature like some big names, right? They got the Sixers and the Devils owner, David Blitzer, Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, and NFL executive Brian Rolap. They've been pushing a similar model, right? Their idea is basically a centralized media rights entity that is going to pool broadcast deals across multiple conferences and increase revenue while also allowing direct payments to athletes. Like all of this stuff just effectively kills the NCAA. And what it's done at this point, even though nothing has started, it's put the college sports financial arms race into overdrive. So let's talk about what's next for the Big Ten, right? They're not rushing into anything yet. This is the first round of bids from private equity firms. It's just exploratory, but the fact that they're even talking about bids tells us, that the conference is preparing for a major shift in how the money flows through college football right now. You got a new media rights deal. You got increased financial pressures. You got ongoing talks with the SEC. Kind of seems to me like the Big Ten is positioning itself to lead in the next phase of college football's evolution, right? Now, whether that means accepting private equity money, joining forces with the SEC on scheduling, non-conference games and packaging it and selling it to a TV network, or, as we just talked about, eventually pushing towards a Super League-style breakaway, one thing's pretty clear, and that is the future of college football is being decided really behind these closed doors. And the Big Ten is absolutely going to make sure that it's got a spot at the head of the table.